Matt Lewis is a nice guy, I think.
He is a very nice guy.
But boy, oh boy, talk about going and sweeping in the swimming in the deep end when you have yet to learn how to swim. I mean, that's every parent's greatest fear, that your child will be in the deep end of the pool and you haven't taught them to swim yet.
He's been taking swimming lessons for a while, though.
He is. And what's been fascinating about this is that, Jimmy Kimmel's statement has been talked about, and to a person, every Republican, even though I'm sitting here saying that Jimmy Kimmel depoliticized it too much, every Republican has immediately gotten totally defensive, because the only people who, maybe not the only people, but broadly speaking, the only people who hear Jimmy Kimmel and feel like it's an accusation are the very people who don't want babies to have, to grow up without pre-existing conditions. So the defensiveness, remember,
doth protest
I've just
too
criticized
much. Baby killers.
I have just criticized Jimmy Kimmel for not making it political. And every Republican out there projects upon it as being political because they feel ashamed about their position only when it's called out and it's really described. How dare you, Jimmy? But here's the exchange on CNN.
Appeal to sort of make a boring policy point like that really
I thought it was a little cheap, though. Look, as a father, I can identify, I can understand, I can try to understand.
I thought it was a little cheap. Talk about, he who denies it supplies it. Just go back. The first guy talking, I don't know who it is, but he's just saying about Ryan Lissa. He's just saying, it really was an emotional thing. And then Matt Lewis comes in with, I thought it was a little cheap. Really? Whoa. All right.
Like that, with an emotional, personal appeal to sort of make a boring policy point like that really
I thought it was a little cheap, though. Look, as a father, I can identify, I can understand, I can try to understand. What is it President Obama, I think, said that being a dad or having a child is like having your heart living outside your body. I completely understand where Jimmy Kimmel's coming from. The passion, I think, is sincere. I don't think that this is the right move for him to do, to politicize this. This is a guy who's incredibly rich, of course. And he's not going to have a problem. And the truth is,
he's politicizing. He's making a moral point that people should be allowed to get insurance.
And that's exactly why I tune into Jimmy Kimmel, to get him making moral points. Look, people do get coverage. If
Pause it. Hold on. So I guess the problem is he's mad because Jimmy Kimmel shared this story that his son almost died. And that's not what I tune in for.
I guess you're in the eyes. What the fuck are you talking about? He's boring. You're boring. He's boring.
Turn the channel.
Turn the channel. I used to think you sold out enough when you didn't do the swimsuit contest with Corolla. Right. And now this. Now you're talking about your freaking heart defect son. What's your problem? You're supposed to be a comedian, man.
To be fair to Matt Lewis, we'll keep playing the clip, but to be fair to Matt Lewis, I do remember when he was very vocal about complaining when Jimmy Kimmel talked about parties he went to, or when he broke up with Sarah Silverman years ago. I do remember that.
It was funny, man. What the hell?
All right. Emergency room, they take care of you. That was actually part of the reason that Mitt Romney came up with Romney Care.
One of the number one reasons people go bankrupt is from health care costs.
And I would also,
so it's not, that is just not true.
But I would also say that it's not true. The notion that Republicans are getting rid of pre-existing conditions is actually not factually either. You said that a couple times
the
today.
Meadows-McArthur amendment, they are gutting the guarantee.
No, states can apply for a waiver. If they are granted the waiver, they are then required to set up a high-risk pool. Now, it may well be...
Pause it. Let me explain that to you. He's saying, no, they're not gutting the federal requirement because we are putting up a situation where the states could actually opt out of the federal requirement, which definitionally, for folks who are playing at home, means that it's not a requirement. If you can opt out and replace it with a crappy risk pool which prices people out of health insurance, it's not a mandate requirement.
Yeah, it's like whether or not black people are people, you leave it to the states. But the point is, I'm trying to watch Kimmel do a fucking joke, man. He ruined it.
Good.
If they are granted the waiver, they are then required to set up a high-risk pool. Now, it may well be that that prices people out.
The congressional
Pause it. Wait a second. That may well be. That is quite a button to put on that. Now, maybe it will be that prices people out. In other words, I've just outlined the path in which you could get not have health insurance, which, you know what? Pre-existing conditions, really, that's what we had before 2014. You may well be priced out of getting health insurance. I mean, does anybody doubt that you could find a health insurance company, regardless of what your pre-existing conditions, for the right price, wouldn't cover you? I mean, I would go into the private health insurance business if
the right price will totally let your kid die.
No
problem.
My point being, like, you come to me and you tell me you've had 2 heart attacks. All right, I will give you health insurance. It's going to be $6 million annually.
Dude, you got to do the Dr. Evil figure for that one.
It'll be
yeah, there you go.
$6 million.
He's like the only people that watch. I think it's an underrated movie, The Rainmaker. You know that movie?
No.
Matt Damon.
Let's continue.
Oh, you swine.
If you pass this bill, 24 million Americans will not have health insurance 10 years from now. I mean, that's just
the Congressional Budget Office is wrong a lot.
And they still go to the. Yeah, but everybody agrees, even if we're off 5 or 10% or 15%, they still won't have a lot of Americans.
My only point is the notion that Republicans
are protected. It's not true that they're going to be equally protected under this changed system.
And also the notion that you can go to the emergency room. Yeah, I mean, you can get some basic care in the emergency room, but it's not.
You're not going to get chemotherapy.
You're not. It's not.
Do you think that Jimmy Kimmel's baby would have died if he weren't rich? And if Republicans passed their health care, that's the implication.
That's what makes this so
implication.
That's what makes this so unselfish. He's not talking about his own child. He's saying, I had this experience. My kid wouldn't have survived
Do you believe that?
if he didn't have the funds that he had because of the
Do you believe
position.
that his kid would not survive?
It's very possible. Look, there was a little kid in
Republicans
Baltimore. There was a little kid in Baltimore who died because she had an infection in her tooth and she couldn't go and get it treated, and she ended up dying. Look it up. I mean, it's not.
Do you think it's a made-up thing that people with pre-existing conditions previous to Obamacare couldn't got insurance and everything was fine? That the whole issue of pre-existing conditions is just a manufactured issue?
No, look, I think it's legitimate. Donald Trump says that he wanted to keep.
It's legitimate. It was one of the most basic cruelties of the medical system before they fixed it.
Do you think people deserve to have housing? Should everybody have a house? Maybe government should provide that.
It's not the same thing.
Should everybody have a job?
Well, actually, now that it seems that Matt Lewis has conceded that everyone should have health care, I'm glad to see he's moving on to housing because I think there's a very good argument that we should be doing that. Now, I think, our guest today had the suggestion of of basically a guaranteed job. I think that's also good. It is good to see that Matt Lewis is so quickly moving through an understanding of what government should provide.
But that's what's funny about Matt Lewis is that he almost is like, wait a second, a baby with a tooth died? That's terrible. I'm going to need to double check that. But I kind of don't really know what I'm talking about, and I might need to.
No, but what's interesting is we're also seeing exactly why the Republicans cannot repeal and replace Obamacare. And as critical as I have been of Obamacare, and I've always liked the PP part of the PPACA, which is the patient protection. Well, that's the actual name of the bill.
I understand.
But the point being, I said PP. No, the point being that in just, 5 or 6 very long years, we have seen this debate change fundamentally, where you would have 4 people on a panel, including David Gergen and some other establishment, center-left people, basically looking at someone who is suggesting that we don't have some type of, just conceptually, never mind in practice, but conceptually, the idea of universal health care.
Oh, Gergen's
they're
center
looking
right.
at, yes, but I'm talking about like Liza. They're looking at this guy like he is from planet Mars. And that is an accomplishment that I think we shouldn't underestimate.
And you know who said this was Charles Krauthammer, of all people. He said the day after the ACA repeal, the first one was pulled, he said Obama's won, and the only thing that's going to happen with healthcare is it's going to be expanded. Because the expectation set has been shifted. It's morally unacceptable now.
Here is an email that we got from a guy. I won't give his name because he didn't specifically said I could. He didn't tell me what, but he said, I know a little bit about the subject that Kimmel's son was born with a tetralogy of Fallot. I know a little bit about the subject because our son, who is now 30, was born with a very serious congenital heart disease that required multiple major surgeries when he was a baby and a toddler. At the time, our workplace insurance plan had a ceiling of $1 million. We burned through more than halfway through that cap in 4 years, and we were sweating the future. Thankfully, his expenses slowed down. It was a huge relief for all of us that as he aged out of his parents' workplace coverage, that the ACA was miraculously born. We now help subsidize our son's $500 a month platinum plan. Needless to say, the GOP's attack on the ACA and health insurance in general is a major concern in our family, as his coverage could disappear at any time because of the machinations of GOP monsters. The idea that, you know, for a couple that did not have workplace insurance or who had a lower than $1 million lifetime cap, $500,000 expense would basically follow this family throughout this kid's life. And it's, wow, I hate to have to make my living arguing the opposite. That seems to be rather difficult. So I do have some.
Also, I did send you that I am. So we should loop back.
Matt
to that.
Lewis said, in the last 24 hours, people have called me trash and scum, but I think Jimmy Kimmel was. I still think Jimmy Kimmel was wrong.
Latest deep dive for the Daily Beast. Can I also just say, like, it's obvious why when we talk about this type of issue, we're talking about the most vulnerable, which are, you know, babies, obviously. But it's like, you know, it's pretty morally repugnant to me that someone in their, like, 50s, you know, like, can't get health care too. Like, it doesn't even need to be the most, like, intense, morally persuasive argument. It's everybody. It's a basic thing. I mean, there's even in that frame, there's still some type of, like, moral system to who gets basic survival, and I think that's what needs to be fundamentally taken down. I love the name of Brunig's new project when he calls it Entitlement Nation.
Yeah,
I love that. Reframe that.
Hi folks, it's Sam Seder. You know me from just a minute ago. Listen, we've had a problem on YouTube. Let me make a graphic visualization. Back in March, our revenue and the ads that were monetized was a lot, like here. And now, over the course of actually within a day into April, it's down to about here. Now, this is just a artist rendering, but that's basically it. We were here, and now we're here. That's because of some YouTube thing where advertisers were concerned on being on hate sites. And, of course, we're a news organization that sometimes talks about hateful people, and we got caught up in their algorithm. I thought it would be fixed by now. It's not. We need your help to keep giving you free content on YouTube. We don't have the advertiser support that we had even back, you know, here. So we're looking for your help. Go to our Patreon site, give a couple of bucks. Literally, you could give a couple, and it would be very helpful. Head over there. Here's the link. Right here or down there. It's somewhere around here. Find it and go help us out. Thanks so much. Enjoy the rest of the show.